Welcome, Oh Pep. Welcome, you guys. Liv and Peppy, so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Such a good sound. Such a good sound. A little background first. VCASS, the Victorian College of the Arts Secondary School.
Yeah.
Is that where you met?
That is where we met.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good, remarkable school. What was it?
It was. It was an incredible environment to be a part of. They had a classical music program there, which we were both a part of, but they also had a jazz music program, or anyone who was training for the Olympics and still had to go to school or was about to be a professional ballerina. So we had a really interesting social
bunch of
dynamic.
young underachievers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like Degrassi High or something like that, I think.
It was fame or something. You know?
Yeah.
It was
That's
wild.
great. And how did you manage the you must have learned time management and sort of self-discipline to manage both your schoolwork and your musical studies.
Yep. That's what happens when you're a nerd. You just
You practice,
yeah.
and then you stay up late and study.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember where you met? Do you remember which class or how you two met?
Totally. I had been at the school for 12 months and I'd heard about Pep because apparently she was the only other person at the school who liked other kinds of music. That's what I was told by a teacher. And she walked past me in the corridor at exactly the right time. I was a classical guitarist there, but I was going to sing a song, and I was going to sing a country song. And she walked past and I was like, there's that chick that the teacher was telling me about, and I may as well ask her to join me to play fiddle. And she did. And what is it, like 6 years later, here we are, Colorado. Yeah.
And when you first met each other, and again, you're playing classical guitar and you're studying classical violin, were you instantly kind of aware of other kinds of music that you both connected with? Did you have similar tastes?
We definitely did. It was interesting because I think that I mostly hid that from everyone at the school because, you're there to play classical music, and I was basically only listening to rock and pop music on my iPod on the way home. Yeah. But as soon as I met Liv, I was like, oh man, I can share all this stuff that I've been listening to with you. And then there was a phone call fairly early on, and Liv, being a nerd, had taken notes during the phone call.
Yeah, I had.
Yeah, and you still have that piece of paper, but basically we just had gone through all the artists that we listened to, and we had grown up on the same stuff.
Yeah. And where did your interest in bluegrass and mandolin and fiddle, where did that come from?
Actually came from, I started working at a music shop in Melbourne, and I think the guy there basically didn't want me to play. I was studying jazz at the time. He didn't want me to play jazz. He just wanted me to play bluegrass, and that's why he hired me. So he just forced it upon me, which I was so happy about because I was interested in it, but kind of scared, And that's really where that came from. I ended up playing in his band, and then we kind of absorbed that influence, and Liv started playing banjo, and we got really into old-time music as well.
Oh, cool. Such an interesting sort of, once you found each other, you could both sort of explore. It's a little safer to be adventurous together, I guess, in that way. Yeah. What was the Melbourne music scene like? Was there a lot of world music? I mean, it's a very international city, so were there other sounds you were bumping into just sort of in that community?
I was playing a bunch of world music through my studies, but I mean, there's a huge original music scene there, and it's incredibly inspiring. Like, everybody is in a band, and I think that really, it was quite normal to just be in a band and carry on with life, and as it was, and that was it's a big part of us, really. We grew up as a band in Melbourne for 3 or 4 years before we ventured out.
Playing primarily as a duo?
Oh, we had various lineups, but it was always our songwriting that we'd take to other players, and a similar lineup. For a second there, we had Bouzouki in the band.
I know. I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you divide up songwriting duties when you started making up your own music?
Well, I guess it kind of changes every time, and it still is like that. A lot of the album that's coming out, the songs written on that, a lot of it stems from Liv's ideas, but then it kind of changes as well, you know, like it might be that I write a song and then Liv comes up with the instrumental line, and that's kind of how we treat the composition or the writing as well, that it's not just the melody, it's also the arrangements. And
right. It's a beautiful record, which we'll touch more on in a second. So the first full-length record has just come out. You've been at this a while. You chose to record it up in Nova Scotia, and with an excellent producer. How did that connection come to pass?
It actually started in Missouri, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Which makes complete sense. The next bit makes no sense either, in that someone had said to me, I was in Kansas City, and the band were with me, but they'd just flown out. Everyone was going on holiday, but I was staying there for an extra day. And someone had said to me, what do you think about, can you get to Halifax this week? I think you should meet this producer. And I was just like, yeah, we can get to Halifax this week. But actually, Peppy had just gone to Winnipeg and the band had just gone to San Francisco. And I just said yes. And then and they wanted us to go pretty much immediately because we only had so long left in America. It was a couple more days. And so I said yes. And then I quickly made some phone calls just as everyone was getting off their planes. And I was like, hey, how do you feel about ditching your holiday and flying to Halifax on the next plane so we can record? And everyone said yes, thank goodness.
Well,
yeah.
So Daniel Ledwell is the producer.
Yeah.
And you hadn't met him?
Hadn't met him, and so it was a big risk, really.
Yeah.
We were familiar with his work, but, you know...
In what way? Just records that he'd done?
Yeah, but, like, not in depth. It was a huge risk.
Yeah.
And...
we're only realising that now.
Yeah, actually, I just realised that then. But, you know, it all worked out because we had this incredible experience with him just doing 2 tracks, and we had 2 days to do them. And he was such a good fit for us in his approach to producing, so much so that we were happy to fly to the other side of the world again in August and finish the record with him.
Yeah. Well, it's when you find that good chemistry, and it helps you sort of bring your creative vision into full light. It's a rare and wonderful thing, and worth traveling literally across the world.
Twice.
Yeah, from Melbourne to Halifax is, I hate to think about that trip. But the idea is that it was worth it. And I have to say, the record, what's so interesting to me is that, sometimes when you hear a song, I think the lyrics they flow very naturally and they fit the songs beautifully. But then when you read them, they also hold up as poetry in ways that a lot of times song lyrics don't. They seem, there's a formula to writing a song where verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, whatever it is, there's a sort of a structure, and your lyrics don't seem particularly structured in that way. Is that intentional? It's just the way they come out?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of our attitude towards songwriting as a whole, in that we don't want to be bound by genre or structure in any way, and that's kind of that's what we get our kicks out of. Oh, that didn't make any sense. Let's keep it.
Yeah.
And I think
well, there's some lovely, compositionally. There's also some dissonance and some sort of counter melodies and little sort of offsetting parts in the middle. Really well conceived. And I know I'm sort of gushing here, but the idea that you also share something with bluegrass, which is bluegrass is known for being kind of cheerful and happy-go-lucky, and then of course the songs are about murder and sad, depressing things. You share that same thing with bluegrass.
Yep.
Your songs sound so cheery, and then it turns out not so much.
Well, we spent a bit of time here 2 years ago going to all these fiddle conventions, learning old-time tunes, and that I was only beginning to become... That didn't make any sense. I was just getting into old-time music, and the nonsensical and very dark lyrics, I just loved them so much.
Well, I mean, listen, I don't want to sort of influence any potential listeners who are going to hear these songs, but they're really they're worth checking out. I'm really congratulations on a great debut full length. And good luck on your tour. I know you've been out on the road with Nathaniel Rateliff and with Lake Street Dive and others, so you're keeping good company.
Yeah, we've been super fortunate to tour with those guys, and like just seeing that kind of show every night is, you learn so much, and I hope that, you know, we can get there one day as well.
Yeah, well, you're off to a great start. You've got a great rhythm section. You know, these guys, you know, Jason and Sean are doing great. Sean, of course, is known since he was a little baby. His dad is a friend of mine, Tony Trishko, who's a great banjo player. But anyway, more on that later. Meanwhile, you're here. We should hear more music. Congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let's welcome back, if you would, Oh Pep from Melbourne, Australia.
Sorry.
Hi, this is Nick Forster from eTown. If you want to stay up to date with all the performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, click the subscribe button. Thanks.